Let's go out now to Kentucky GOP Senator Rand Paul. He's a member of the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee. Senator, I kind of felt bad for you. After Senator Peters and Senator Johnson screamed at each other, you're like, okay, I guess I'm next. And you had to jump in. Do you feel the same way, just handled it differently? I mean, is the tension that high on that committee?
Yeah, and I think the problem is it's become personal. You know, Senator Peters has accused Senator Johnson of spreading Russian disinformation. It's the same kind of crap that the left has been doing over and over again. You work for Putin or Moscow Mitch and all this craziness. But it's very insulting because they're basically implying that we're thinking of another country first, that we're somehow a traitor to our country. And they don't realize that those are fighting words where I come from. And you can see, I think, Chairman Johnson's justifiably mad. Who wants to be accused by someone of not being loyal to your country? I mean, that's crazy.
Can I just tell you what the president just tweeted out? Chris Krebs was totally excoriated. The president fired him when he came out and said there was nothing, there was no fraud at all, the cleanest election ever. And proven wrong at the Senate hearing on the fraudulent 2020 election. Massive fraud took place with machines, people voting from out-of-state illegals, dead people, no signatures, and much more. And we did hear his lawyers say that, and Krebs took the other side on that. What did you get from this? Who's right?
I think Krebs still doesn't understand what he's trying to say. If he's simply saying that it was a good election because it wasn't foreign interference and that his committee did a great job at trying to prevent foreign interference, I could accept that. But he didn't look at absentee ballots. He didn't look to see if dead people voted or non-citizens voted or if people voted twice. He didn't look at that. So from the very beginning, I always thought he should have clarified his statement to say it was the safest election with regard to what I'm in charge of, which is interference through the internet. And I actually don't think that any election votes in 2016 or 2020 were changed by some nefarious third party in another country. I don't think that happened. Do I think there was fraud in this? Absolutely. And there's a history of these kind of problems in our country. Right. And the only way to deter it is you got to put people in jail. So there has to be an investigation of people who voted illegal, people who voted twice, people who voted from the wrong address. They need to be purged from the rolls. We need to make sure it doesn't happen again. But we can't just sweep it under the rug and say, oh, well, 1,700 people in Georgia voted twice. Or are we going to let them vote twice again in about 2 weeks? I mean, somebody has to do something.
Yeah, it's not fair to the 75 million people that voted for President Trump and still have questions about the election. Let's talk about Hunter Biden. It's something that the rest of America, if you're not watching Fox, learned about after the election. And Steve Doocy's son, Peter, who has been on the campaign trail, and now he's with what they're calling the president-elect Biden, and he's asking the tough questions. No one else is. Fox is the only one they are asking the tough questions, thanks to Peter. And Peter asked him yesterday, he said, do you think that your son did anything wrong? Listen to this.
Are you confident your son Hunter did nothing wrong?
I'm confident.
All right, so that's the only time he's answered the question about it. What's your reaction?
If he's confident, he should leave in place the U.S. attorney who's investigating Hunter Biden. There is a U.S. attorney in Delaware doing this. Traditionally, when a new president comes in, they fire all the U.S. attorneys. If he wants to show that this is going to be an upright, upstanding Biden administration and that they're going to actually let the cards lie where the cards lie on Hunter Biden, he needs to leave that U.S. attorney in place. So that's something very carefully to watch. If the U.S. attorney is fired in the first weeks of the administration, and if the investigation goes to a Biden appointee, you can tell the fix is in and there's not going to be justice. But Hunter Biden deserves the same justice that Paul Manafort got. Nothing less, nothing more.
Well, speaking of the fixes in, there is a brand new Rasmussen Reports poll that came out, and they asked people all across the country, people who are voters, what they thought about the situation with Hunter Biden, where we've heard about it afterwards. As you can see right there, 52% of all U.S. voters think the media ignored the Hunter Biden story to help Joe Biden's win the presidency. Now, 78% of Republicans think the media deliberately hid the story until after Election Day. And then, and this is jaw-dropping right here, 73% of Republicans think that Biden profited, Joe Biden, that is to say, profited from Hunter Biden's business dealings. And see, that's, you know, people go, well, you know, Hunter Biden is the son of the former vice president. But if you think that the president-elect is involved in these deals, there could be a problem for the president-elect.
Well, and when you look at the sources now, the sources have gotten so one-sided, completely ignoring it. Not only ignoring it, then sometimes branding it or labeling it as being misinformation. And that's become the new thing. Even the Associated Press, which once upon a time was thought to be objective, would write stories and then say no evidence. When my wife and I were attacked in New York, they said, Rand Paul says he was attacked despite no evidence, except for 200 videos of my wife and I being attacked in D.C. and a police officer being injured while trying to help us and getting stitches above his eye. Oh, no, nobody was attacked. Nothing to see here. No evidence. That's the problem. Is it's not just ignoring the news. They're then saying that what we are saying is misinformation until it becomes so big they can't contain it. But this only happened because there were some good people in the Department of Justice who decided to say, look, if we're going to investigate Paul Manafort and throw the book at him, shouldn't we at least be fair and do the same thing to Hunter Biden?
Yeah, I know some are concerned who Joe Biden's AG will be, and that's why Lindsey Graham is calling for a special counsel. He wants an outsider to investigate Hunter Biden. He said if you believe a special counsel was needed to look into Trump and Russia, how can you say there's no need for a special counsel regarding Hunter Biden to see if his dad was involved?
I think that's true if you were somebody who wanted a special counsel, but I didn't want a special counsel for Trump or for Manafort. Right. I think actually Manafort was over-prosecuted in the sense that his punishment was much greater than his malfeasance. And so what I would say, I don't like special counsels. If I had a special counsel, I can investigate anybody in the world. I can investigate the deacon at your church who's never committed a sin and put him in jail because special counsels are too powerful. So I'm not for it, even in this case. But I do think Hunter Biden should get justice, and it should be similar to what was meted out to Paul Manafort.
All right. And you think the election was stolen, you tweeted out?
Absolutely. I think there's a great deal of fraud, and it's not the first time. I mean, you know, the famous story of LBJ. He's got scotch in one hand, his illegal votes in a shoebox in the other, and he turns them in at midnight, and they say, uh-oh, your opponent turned his in 2 hours later and won the election. He said, never again, he says. So he comes back 2 years later and he says, we're not turning our illegal votes in till my opponent has turned in all of his illegal votes. It's been going on. My dad had an election stolen in 1976. But the only way you fix it is the courts will not hear you after the election. That's what we're finding now. It's the way it's always been. You got to go back and you got to police the election. You got to elect a Secretary of State who won't lie, cheat, steal, and change the election law. And so these are things you have to do. And you have to purge the polls. You got to prevent illegal aliens from voting, et cetera.
They didn't do that. Senator Rand Paul, thank you so much.